Dr. Joseph Sansone, it's wonderful to talk to you. And I've just done an interview with Sasha Lachapova about the court case that is coming up on March the 9th. Very important case, which is going against, including others, Bill Gates and Albert Bourla from Pfizer, and others who are involved, Mark Rutte. You and Sasha and Catherine Austin-Fitts will be witnesses, key witnesses in that. So can you tell us your role in it and how that came about, how you became involved?
Sure. Actually, myself, Catherine Austin-Fitts, Sasha Latapova, Catherine Watt, and Dr. Michael Yeadon are also witnesses. I don't know if they'll be at this hearing, but I believe they're the 5 witnesses that are in the case. I think they reached out to me sometime in 2024. I think it was actually before the case was filed, because I had filed my Rutte Mandamus here in Florida, and so I was communicating with them. And then they survived they survived the motion to dismiss in October of 2024, I think. And so I was, I had connected Dr. Francis Boyle with them to be a witness. I think I even gave them some emails with a couple of the other witnesses too to connect them, because they asked me for them. But the biggest thing, I arranged for Dr. Boyle to be a witness in the case, and unfortunately he passed away 3 weeks later. And nobody knew he was going to testify. So I know there's speculation about that, and the timing is a little weird, but nobody knew he was going to testify besides myself and the attorneys. The other witnesses may or may not have known at that point. I'm not sure, but it was going to be a surprise. The court didn't know yet. But all our communications are monitored, so it's very possible that something happened. I haven't heard anything from the family members saying that anything nefarious happened, but who knows? So I'm not going to rule that out either. But there's no information on that. I don't even know why he went to the hospital.
I know that Sasha has grave concerns because she'd been in touch with him and he was in really good health and still lecturing, and he was going to be a key witness. Tell me what
he taught law. He taught law. At that point, I don't know that I don't know who else was in touch with him besides myself and the attorneys. But I mean, the family hadn't said anything about it, and the timing is weird, so I don't rule it out. I don't speculate on it because I didn't hear anything from the family on it, and I think it kind of keeps people from taking action. If people get scared and then they don't do anything.
Well, how did you come in touch with Dr. Francis Boyle? Before we get back to the Netherlands case, let's talk about your writ of mandamus, we've briefly talked about it in another interview, which we'll put below this. But if you can just give us an overview.
Okay, so Dr. Francis Boyle was an advisor to the National American Renaissance Movement, nationalarm.org, which I'm still a board member on there. And so he would be in our conference calls every other week, in fact, so that's since I think at least 2023 or 2022, I should say.
What is the Renaissance Movement?
It's a nonprofit. It's a small nonprofit, and dealing with a lot of the issues we all believe in.
But what does it stand for? Is it about freedom? Is it about the right to speak?
It's about liberty and freedom and fighting against the globalism and all that kind of stuff. The website's nationalarm.org. But he was an advisor there, so he'd be on the conference calls, and in April of 2023, when I had my congestive heart failure and my triple bypass heart surgery, so that was on April 1st, April Fool's Day, which I've told you about this, but on, I think it was the 5th, it was on Wednesday, and he, in our, I'm in the hospital doing our, I can hardly even talk, he's out of breath, I asked him to endorse my ban to jab resolution at the time. Privately, he had, but I asked him to do a public endorsement on it because I didn't want people to know I was in the hospital, because there was a lot of people trying to undermine it. And that resolution said that the shot for biological and technological weapons of mass destruction. So he did endorse that.
So let's just slow down that. It was a ban the jab resolution or a petition. Was it?
It was a resolution. So it was at my local county Republican Party. I got that passed on February 21st. It declared the injections to be biological and technological weapons of mass destruction,
Wow.
called on the governor and the attorney general to act. So I got like 10 counties in Florida to do it, counties across the country, and the Idaho and the Arizona Republican parties. Eventually, I got them to pass it. But at this point, I had a couple counties pass it, and this was in April of 23, and so I had him endorse it while I was in the hospital. Now, flash forward a year later, when I did the Writ of Mandamus, I had him give me a affidavit, which I used in that in 2024. And then I also used it in my current case that I filed on December 1st of 2024. So at my request, he wrote an affidavit saying that these were bioweapons violating the law. He wrote, the mRNA nanoparticle injections were biological weapons violating the law. He wrote. So he was one of my affidavits, obviously a very important one because he wrote the law, considered to be one of the world's leading, if not the one of the world's leading legal authorities on biological weapons.
It's incredibly important, that part of it. This leading spokesman on biological weapons was killed off. I mean, that does have to have a huge question mark over it. But what's fascinating is, just to remind people, you did all your own filing.
If he was killed off, though, Liz, I don't know that he was. I get the timing, but people do go to the hospital, if they could have a heart attack or something. Yeah, I don't know. So I don't know what his.
But
we don't know what his health status was.
He was a key witness, and what was amazing was you compiled all your own legal documents in this case. You made sure that you did all your own legal work, and in fact, he praised your drafting of your legal documents. Did he not?
Yeah, actually, he did, and I used that in my last appeal, because I guess we're going here for a second. I actually won my appeal in my case, and I went back to the trial court, but I took a screenshot of his email saying it was a very fine piece of legal work, and he was glad to be part of it, because I sent it to him after I filed it. I always send it to attorneys after I file it, because I'm pro se, and I don't want them to incur liability, because if you help a pro se litigant, it's supposed to say that, so I don't ask him for help. I show it to him afterward. But, and so, yeah, he did think it was good. So I went to the trial court, and now I'm back in the appellate court again. But getting back to the Netherlands, we can circle back to that if you want.
So let's just finish where your case is at. So you won that part of it, because always there are these steps, and then you have to circle back around, as you say, and start again. It's like a number of Mount Everests you have to climb when you mount big legal action. So where is it at now?
I won my appeal. I got back in the trial court. And make a long story short, my motions weren't being answered. So I served the governor and attorney general. I served them and everything. And I wasn't getting any responses to my motion. I motioned for a preliminary injunction with an evidentiary hearing. So then what I did is, I think it was on like December 11th, I did an emergency motion for a preliminary injunction with an evidentiary hearing, citing the fact that my ejection fraction is as low as 15 to 20%, which is very bad. And so in my case, I'm arguing that I'm being injured by the involuntary environmental exposure via shedding. And
Sorry, you'll have to slow down, Joseph. I'm not with you there.
Sorry.
What are you saying there? That what was your motion saying?
So my motion was a motion for a preliminary injunction with an evidentiary hearing. I was asking for about a 3.5-hour evidentiary hearing, and I provided a bunch of exhibits of evidence, as well as my witness list. And one of my witnesses there is Florida Surgeon General Dr. Joseph Ladapo, who I intend to subpoena. And it said very clearly on there that I intend to subpoena him. And so what happened was the court dismissed my case again, even without any hearing. And while there's a pending emergency motion here where I provided sworn evidence of a life-threatening condition, my ejection fraction was 15 to 20%, which means my heart's pumping ability is pretty bad. And so it was dismissed. So then I did a motion for rehearing. And with my motion for rehearing, I included a supplement, which included a proposed second amended complaint curing her alleged defects. And then that was just disregarded. And so then I filed my appellate brief on December 18th. I filed my notice of appeal on December 18th of 2025. 10 days later, I provided a 75-page appellate brief. okay,
Goodness
outlining
me.
all the errors, and it's mostly procedural errors because the court should have did a futility finding. They should have given me notice. I should have an opportunity to amend it, which I provided. These are strong procedural grounds that I'm appealing on. So then what happened is the deadline was like January 27th or 28th for Governor DeSantis's and the Attorney General's attorney to file their response. And so the attorney filed their notice of appearance a few days before that and asked for a 60-day extension. Now, so that means they need 90 days to answer a brief I wrote in 10 days. Now, I have 70 days to write my brief, so I cut 60 days off, working 12 to 16 hours a day doing this. Christmas Eve, I started at 8 in the morning and finished at 3:30 in the morning. Christmas Day, I went from 10 a.m. to or 8 or 9 a.m. to like 10 p.m. And then I was trying to get it done to give it to DeSantis as a Christmas present. Didn't work out, but I followed it a little bit. I
Just
followed it
for
a little
people
bit
who are a
later.
bit lost, I mean, what we're hearing about here is procedural steps. And I remember in the last talk at the end, or somewhere in the middle, I think you said everybody should be doing this everywhere in the world, taking these
Yeah, absolutely.
people on who rolled out this COVID response that has hurt so many people. However, it does sound daunting hearing about all the
Well, what it
procedural steps you have to
is
go
you
through.
don't give up. You keep fighting, and so that's what it is. So basically, they're saying they need 90 days to answer my brief. Now, in their request, the attorney kind of like mocked my condition, which I pointed out. I opposed it. I pointed out that like she's claiming to be not familiar with the case at all, but somehow she's saying my condition isn't potentially fatal. And that, even though I gave sworn evidence, but I also point out there that because we're going to get a new governor in 2027, that will also likely mean a new Surgeon General, and that prejudices my case, which is why I didn't want them to extend it. I was hoping they'd only give them 30 days. They did give them the 60-day extension, but what they did was positive for me. One thing they did that was positive for me is they took judicial notice of my prior appeal and all my supplements, which included Dr. Latipo's poison statement that the MRA injections are poison, RFK
Wow.
Jr.'s statement that the risk that way to Bennett. So a good evidence there. So even though
RFK's
I'm
statement that what? That the
that the
risks outweigh the
RFK
benefits.
statement,
Yeah.
yes, that the COVID injections weren't effective for the flu or COVID, and the
Because
risks that way. Because I argue that shows criminal intent on behalf of RFK Jr. and Health and Human Services from that moment forward. Because you're saying they're
just
not
for people
effective.
who need a reprise, Joseph, just very slowly take people through that was the procedure, and it sounds impressive, complex, and very, very time consuming. I admire you. But just take us back to the substance. You are seeking a declaration, are you not, that these are weapons of mass destruction? You're also seeking an
So
injunction. Just tell people the nub
yeah,
of
so
this
I'm
case.
seeking an injunction to prohibit the governor of the state of Florida and the attorney general to continue to facilitate these injections because they're biological and technological weapons of mass destruction.
Yes.
Now, what I did is, though, when I did my amended complaint here that she kicked out, I shifted a little bit. What I'm using is Florida's health freedom law, which is 381 point whatever, and that law prohibits forced or coerced EUA products like the face mask, the MRA injections, and so on. So what I'm arguing is I'm arguing that the MRA injections, because of the involuntary exposure via shedding, violates our health freedom law because that's actually a forced or coerced vaccination. There's no way to avoid it. And then I'm also arguing the constitutional arguments that it violates privacy and bodily autonomy and your right to life. And so I shifted a little bit on and the reason I did that is because they were claiming there's no civil cause of action with our weapons of mass destruction law. I argued that it should be viewed like a public health law, but irregardless, I shifted a little bit there. What I'm arguing in my actual case here is that I had congestive heart failure on April 1st of 2023 and triple bypass heart surgery on April 10th of 2023, and I'm arguing that is due to shedding, involuntary environmental exposure. What I'm arguing as well is that it doesn't matter if you believe me on that. I can show that the shedding is real and get witnesses to testify to that, and that means it's a risk to me and other people, members of the public. So even though my appeal is mostly on procedural issues, the one of the issues I am appealing on is I'm saying that this is an issue, a novel issue, which it is, of great public importance, which it is. And that's where I'm arguing a little bit more the merits. But what I'm saying is we need evidentiary development, because I'm not really supposed to argue the merits at the appellate level, but I'm saying this is why we need evidentiary development. Like, for instance, Nick Hulscher and some others came out with a case study the other day, a comprehensive case study last week, talking about how it was like 3.5 years that the spike protein and the mRNA and the plasmid DNA was all showing up in the tissues and the skin and even the exosomes, which support shedding. And so I filed that as a supplemental authority, again, arguing that this is why we need evidentiary development. Basically, I've been trying since December 1st of 2024 to get a hearing, and I've yet to get one.
Wow.
So,
who are your witnesses for that?
In this case, who are my witnesses? My witnesses are Dr. Andrew Zywiec, who's provided affidavit saying it's a bioweapon, Dr. Marik, who's treating like thousands of victims of the shots in the villages. She's publicly said they're a bioweapon, gave me affidavit. Who else is a witness? Nick Hulscher is a witness. He's going to talk about the amyloid proteins and the microclotting, and he said it's a bioweapon publicly. Who else is a witness? Dr. Anna Mahalchia, who's been right out front with the nanotech and everything and the shedding, and myself, because I'm going to introduce the evidence, and then I'm going to subpoena Surgeon General Latipo. So if I mention them all, I think I have 6 witnesses, counting me.
Because in the interview I did with Sasha Lachapova and former Green Beret Michael Yarn, who's getting a huge following now, they are both absolutely adamant. They're clear that these were weapons of mass destruction, biological warfare, and that we are in a war situation right now. I think it's very hard for people to get their head around that. But you are enormously brave. Do you still feel very optimistic about your case? And then we'll move to the Netherlands one. And do you have a lot of support there in Florida? What's it like?
I couldn't, like, for instance, I've gotten my bill introduced in 3 states, Minnesota, Arizona, and just recently Tennessee. I call it the Sansone mRNA Bioweapons Prohibition Act because it's unique in that it recognizes the injections are already illegal according to existing weapons of mass destruction laws and bioweapon laws and terrorism laws, but it also creates has penalties for it, but it also creates a criminal and civil penalty for non-enforcement. So if you're a government official and you're presented with evidence and you actually don't enforce this law, you get prosecuted. And I created a civil cause of action there because let's say that the sheriff doesn't want to prosecute, or the prosecutor doesn't want to prosecute their brother-in-law, the sheriff, at least you could sue them. So I did that deliberately. So I'm having I couldn't find anybody in Florida to do it because they're all spineless, but the legislators. But the case, I feel strong. Look, everybody says the courts are corrupt and this and that, but you need to test that hypothesis, and I don't see enough cases out there to test it. Now, obviously, the issue with this judge is a little bit of an issue, but the appellate court in the First District Court of Appeal here in Florida, in the first case, I had 8 issues I was appealing on. They took the one procedural out that they could. They didn't want to deal with the constitutional issues, but what happened is the judge the first time around dismissed my case, and she didn't dismiss it with prejudice, which means you cannot amend your complaint, but she threatened me with sanctions if I continue to file frivolous cases and said she would not entertain further motions. So unofficially, she did dismiss me with prejudice. So I appealed it, and one of the arguments was that she wasn't allowing me to amend the complaint. So they could not reverse and remand it on that because she did not dismiss with prejudice. So what they did, at first I thought I lost. They dismissed my case and said it was still active in the lower court and I could amend it despite what she said. So that's how I won that case. But that shows to me that the First District Court of Appeal, because if you read my first complaint, I got bioweapon all over the place, biological and technological weapon. Now this case I do too, but I'm focusing more on the procedural stuff. So they recognize the importance of procedural, the value of following procedures. So hopefully they'll do it again. I think I should win. My case is strong.
Right.
My case is stronger than it was last time. At least I should win the appeal and get back to the trial court.
Well, certainly, if that judge ever watches this interview, I can tell you something, whoever you are. It is not frivolous. This is one of the most serious issues in the world today. We are being under assault all around the world from our own governments, and it roots right back to DARPA. It roots right back to warfare on the people, and it needs to be uncovered. I'm just praying that you have great success, Joseph. And we will keep a watching brief on this important case in Florida. I recommend everybody support you. We'll put the details below on how to support you with that case. So I gather that in the Netherlands case, you are one of the expert witnesses, but in your role, you're really going to step into Dr. Francis Boyle's shoes because he is now dead. You're going to be able to present his perspective as you understand it. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. And so I provided the court an affidavit, I mean, or at least the attorney, I provided them an affidavit already from me authenticating Dr. Boyle's affidavit, which I used in my case. But so Dr. Boyle's view, he had a few arguments about why he was arguing that this was a bioweapon. And one of them was that COVID itself was developed through illegal gain of function research. And he cites a paper from 2015, which incriminates Fauci, Walensky, and others. And he argues that because it was developed to strengthen it, I'm paraphrasing here, but it was developed to strengthen it. He's arguing that because of it wasn't for peaceful purposes, and the language they used in the paper supports that view. And so, because the quote unquote virus was created through illegal gain of function research, the derivatives of that are in the injections. That in itself makes the injections a bioweapon. The simplicity of this argument is that it shows specific intent. Okay. He also talks about DARPA developing the lipid nanoparticles and how that's a dual-use technology, and that also feeds into the specific intent argument. Another argument that he supported, because he supported it in my case, is the knowingness standard of intent. So you got something out here that you know is causing harm, it's causing disease, disability, and death, and then you're also out there telling people it's safe and effective while you're continuing to push it. So you know this is causing harm. There's no doubt, So, and we know from the Pfizer versus cancer case. You and I know this was pre-planned, but I mean, from the Pfizer versus Kansas case, we know that they knew the typical bureaucrats knew from at least December of 2020 that the COVID injections were harmful. Which, by the way, before the shots came out, Dr. Francis Boyle was actually out there doing interviews in 2020, in December of 2020, saying that they were a bioweapon for the reasons we're talking about right now. So he was out ahead of this before anybody, really. So, I mean, let that sink in. Basically, arguably one of the world's leading legal authorities on biological weapons, the law professor wrote the bioweapons law, the U.S. domestic implementation legislation of the Biological Weapons Convention. He wrote the Biological Weapons and Anti-Terrorism Act of 1989. He's sitting there saying in December of 2020, before the shots are rolling out, that they are in fact a bioweapon legally. Okay, everybody should put the brakes on right at that moment instead of censoring it. So that's part of his argument for specific intent. I think it's a very simple argument, but I think it's a good one. And he argues the knowingness standard of intent as well. Now, he also argues for what is called malice aforethought.
Yes.
And that is a callous disregard for human life, basically. And so these people knew what they do and was reckless and endangering human lives. And his argument is based on that alone. You could prosecute the CEO of Pfizer and Moderna and all these other companies. And then the other argument is you could
prosecute Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand on that.
Yeah, absolutely. All these people need to be prosecuted. Nobody should be left standing. So he also argues that these were in fact violations of the Nuremberg Code. Now, the Nuremberg Code may not, because you're experimenting on people without their consent and everything. There's no informed consent. I mean, what are you going to do? Your informed consent is going to say, "Hey, bioweapon, use at your own risk." I mean, come on. So there's no informed consent. So what he argues now, that is okay. So the Nuremberg Code itself might not be binding, but basically every country has informed consent laws that are based on that. And so the law, the actual law is escaping me, but the Dutch law, they have their informed consent law, which is kind of based on that. And so those are basically the four main arguments of why he's saying it's a bioweapon.
That
So you got
fourth,
the
yeah,
good.
yes. You go ahead, Joseph.
So you've got the gain of function research and the derivatives of that in the shot, which make it a bioweapon, show specific intent. You also have the dual use nanotechnology developed by Thorp, the nanoparticles, everything that are used as a delivery system to get into cells. That's shown specific intent. You have that knowingness standard of intent. You know it's harming people. You're lying about it. You're continuing to do it. So you knew what you're doing. And then you've got the malice aforethought, which is callous disregard for human life. And then you've also got the informed consent issue, which there was absolutely none.
Yes.
And that's derivative of the Nuremberg Code. And
Yep.
keep in mind that people were actually executed, even doctors, for violating the Nuremberg Code. So.
It's really fascinating. That Nuremberg one, it hums along in the background, really, because I think everybody who trusted the government gave their trust really on the basis that we'd grown up knowing that that was something our governments had signed up to, that they would never violate us. I can still remember that 3 a.m. research I was doing when I went, the only possible explanation for this is that Jacinda Ardern wants to hurt the people of New Zealand. All the research led into that corral. But before that, you think, my government would never hurt me, would never intentionally hurt me. And this is where a lot of people are still stuck. There are still a lot of people in New Zealand who are still stuck in not being able to open up to the fact that their injuries and their constant sickness and the premature deaths of their relatives could very well be down to a government that actually intended to hurt them by pushing these poison weapons of mass destruction on them. It's a hard bridge for people to walk across, isn't it, Joseph? Mentally.
It is, but I'm going to tell you right now, the best weapon is the truth. And for a long time, a lot of people in the so-called health freedom movement have been resisting saying this is a weapon of mass destruction or biological and technological weapon of mass destruction, however you want to phrase it. And that's how we lose. Because if we debate whether you can mandate biological weapons, then there's an embedded hypnotic command that you can target us with weapons of mass destruction. And the only way to win here, it's like an attorney going after the other side's strongest argument. So let's debate about whether this is a weapon or not. Then you'll never have to worry about mandates again. And here's the deal. I get it. It's ugly to look at. I get it that you have guilt about it. I get it that you're afraid. You don't want it. You want to move on. But you know what? It's been done. It's not going to go away. Most people we know will probably have a shortened lifespan because of these injections. There's studies that back that up, but you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. If you give people chronic illnesses and diseases, they're not going to live as long. We've got that research out of Korea, which was basically the whole country showing like the autoimmune, failure and stuff. I know Dr. Vila's preliminary research here in the villages shows that about 75% of the people have problems with the immune system, like 55% of them like immune failure. And this is even people that are asymptomatic. And that was in that paper, COVID-19 Harms and Damages, a non-exhaustive conclusion. And that paper is really important, by the way, Liz, because that paper says that these are bioweapons. It says that both the virus and the vaccine violated the Biological Weapons Convention. So that's echoing what Dr. Boyle was saying, and that was published in the that's Zywiec et al. That was, but it has 11 prominent co-authors are on there. Nick Hulscher, Dr. Vila, Dr. McCullough, and so on. There's a lot of prominent authors on that paper, and that was published in the Journal of American Physicians and Surgeons back in September. And the fact that even the whole health freedom movement isn't talking about that paper shows how problematic it is, because that's a peer-reviewed journal article saying it's a bioweapon, basically. So
that is so telling, because one thing Michael stresses, and every time I talk to him, he says, words have such power. It's so important we use our words carefully. And he says, if you talk now to people who still talk about this as a vaccine, it shows they haven't done enough digging deeply, or due diligence, you could say. He says, if they don't call them what they are, weapons of mass destruction, WMDs, okay, these biological warfare on the people, then the person you're interviewing has not done enough research into what's really going on. So that backs up your point. Absolutely, Joseph.
Yeah, and that's honestly, I started working in May of 2021 to get that first ban and jeb resolution passed in February of 23, and that's just to say that it was a biological and technological weapon of mass destruction, because we had to replace the whole board and everything. But it was like, because yeah, that is the point. The words do matter, and it's the deal is that most people will have a shortened lifespan because of these injections, because of chronic illnesses and diseases. And you know what? If you're 35 years old and you got this shot and you only live to be 63, well, they stole 17 years off your life. And
Look,
so this is just a reality of what we're dealing with.
a friend of mine
And I'm
went
not
to the
saying this is,
funeral of a 31-year-old young man. He died in his
yeah,
sleep of a heart attack. And they're all at the funeral because they're not ready to face it. They're all normalizing that. But I tried to say to her, when did we ever, before the rollout of the shots, when did we ever have 31-year-olds dying in their sleep of heart attacks? When? It's only been
no.
since these
And the
weapons.
reason I,
Yeah.
And the reason I focus, because as a psychotherapist, I actually specialize in clinical hypnosis, so I know what they're doing. They're using mass media brainwashing to just basically normalize this. Like when you have a whole presidential election where none of the candidates are talking about the harms of the shots, that's an indirect hypnotic command that's very powerful, because indirect suggestions are powerful because you have no conscious resistance to them. Like that's an embedded command there that this isn't even an issue. And so they get you to cheerlead for your next candidate, and they're not even bringing this issue up. Let me say something very clearly right now to the people watching right now. The biggest voting bloc in America, the biggest voting bloc in New Zealand, and any country on this planet are the people that have been poisoned by these injections, and nobody is representing them. That in itself is not normal. Maybe that's because our elections are totally fake with the computer voting, or it's because people are just afraid to do it. But those people, though you've been violated, anger is a healthy response to this. Denial is not. Okay, so you and your family have been violated. Okay, looking the other way and pretending didn't happen. No, what needs to happen is we need to stop these shots, because, and people need to understand, one of the reasons I'm fighting so hard to try to stop this is because I know that based on the doctors I speak to that are doing research on this, most of the people that got the shot have damaged immune systems, even if they're asymptomatic. So if you got that shot, Liz, and I'm sitting here and let's say I've had a few of the shots, and then you're coming around getting another shot, and you're shedding on me, and I'm getting that involuntary environmental exposure, I'm at more danger because I have a damaged immune system because I've gotten the shots already than even somebody who didn't get the shot, even though the shedding can affect everybody. So people need to understand, if you've got the shots, you need to call for these shots to end, because you're having people shedding on you and you have a damaged immune system.
Yes.
So that's problematic, and this is common sense. I'm a psychotherapist. I'm not a virologist or something. This is just any idiot can figure this out. But the problem is people are listening to authorities still, and they need to stop doing that. And so we need to stop with the shots, and then try to find a way to mitigate the damage. And we need to bring these people to justice. And so, in this case, now the case in the Netherlands is a little different than mine. I'm trying to get injunctions to stop shots. What they're doing there is on behalf of, they're down to, one of them passed away, so they're down to 6 plaintiffs, and attorney Peter Stassen, who's the co-counsel on the case. My understanding is he wrote the briefs and everything. I know Arnold got arrested, but they were co-counsel, and Peter, I think, actually wrote the briefs. I mean, they worked on them together, but he was actually the one writing them. But
and I'll just briefly allude to that. Arno van Kessel was taken away, literally taken away to a southern prison, and really has been anonymized, you could say. There's been barely anything about his whereabouts. That is another issue altogether, which we will park for this interview. But I put him up there with Rainer Fulmick. He is a political prisoner of the First Order, and we all need to
I'd agree. And I mean, I don't even know why he was arrested.
Because he's taking on Gates, and Mark Rutte and
well, that's why I got to give Peter great courage to fight this case forward on his own, but
to take on Bourla from Pfizer and to take on Gates is phenomenal. And my understanding is that in the main body of the case, Gates has been told he must appear in person, which is something else. Because when I discuss it with people, I go, "Oh, he'll never turn up," and I've said, "No, he would actually be defying a court order to turn up in person." But we're not at the main stage yet. But when it is on the main stage, he needs to be there, Gates, doesn't he?
Right. So let's talk about what's going on right now. So the case itself, their case is different to mine. Their case is they're suing on behalf of the plaintiffs for damages against the defendants, which include Bill Gates, Albert Bourla of Pfizer, Mark Rutte, current Secretary of NATO, and other Dutch officials. And but they are alleging the use of biological weapons with these shots and the crime of genocide. And so this appeal, what happened was the court denied the having witnesses, and also denied the cameras in the courtroom from independent media like yourself and others, and the public. And so, because this is an issue of such great, there needs to be transparency. This is such an important issue that affects the public. And so Attorney Peter Statson appealed that decision. So the case survived the initial motion to dismiss. So this isn't like the case was dismissed and they're appealing it. This is maybe their version of what in America we would call interlocutory appeal. They're appealing the specific decision of not allowing the witnesses and to not allow the cameras and the independent media into the courtroom and the public. And so that's what this appeal is actually about, and that's what the hearing is about on the 9th of March. The thing is that the court for this hearing, the appellate court, is allowing the public in and independent media. And so that seems to be a good sign. They're going to allow the witnesses to be there. I don't know if all 5 will attend this, but I know 3 of us are, myself, Catherine Austin-Fitts, and Sasha Latipova. So that to me, as just somebody standing from out here and looking at it, and it's like, well, okay, that's a good signal from this court that they're actually allowing that in this hearing, because that is what the appeal is about.
And what I always say is that the one thing that judges really don't like is negative publicity about whether they are running a corrupt courtroom. They might run a corrupt courtroom, but they don't like to be ever seen to be running a corrupt courtroom. So what that means is we, the people of the world everywhere, need to tune in on the 9th of March. I think it goes from 11 a.m. till 4 p.m. in the Netherlands time. I think that's an hour off Greenwich Mean Time.
I thought it was 9 to 4, but maybe you're right. It was 11 to 4. And then afterward, like around, and then around 5 o'clock, they're going to have a press conference afterward.
Yes.
So you got to imagine me being in Florida since 2004, going up there to the hinterland, freezing. That'll be fun.
I think if they see millions tuning in from around the world, not just thousands, but millions, the court will be on its mettle to be seen to be delivering justice. And that's how we keep the judges honest. It really has come down to literally the power of the people, Joseph. We always talk about if only enough people would stand up and take back our power in unison from these corrupt, broken, I can't even call them leaders.
Liz, I look at it like this.
Yeah.
I look at it like this. There are psychological operations layered upon psychological operations layered upon psychological. And you know what? They're effective because so many people have bought into learned helplessness. They don't do anything. And, that's not going to work. This isn't going to work. Well, how the hell do you know if you don't file a case? Yes. So the more cases getting filed that are in some way arguing that this is a weapon of mass destruction or bioweapon, the better. The more bills that get introduced, we're still looking for that person in New Zealand to introduce my New Zealand version of the bill. I'm just saying. But the more bills that get introduced saying that this is a weapon, the better. So all power exists on an illusion. The biggest lie that we've ever been told, the biggest lie that you've been told, Liz, and I've been told is, and everybody watching right now or listening, is that the pen is mightier than the sword. No, the pen is mightier because it's backed up by the sword. All government exists through force. But here's the thing. All power exists through illusion. Even the people who are following orders have to believe that they have to follow those orders. Now, they do a lot of training in the military with the police to kind of dehumanize people to the point where they'll just do what they're told, like trained dogs. In fact, and I use the example, I don't know if you remember, you probably do, but back in 2007, I think it was, in Myanmar, where there was, because of the corruption and oppression there were tens of thousands of Buddhist monks marching carrying signs that said love and kindness conquers all. It was like unprecedented. And because the people there had such reverence and awe for these Buddhist monks, they like were just in awe of it, because they typically they don't get involved in political type things like that. They were just speaking out against the oppression that was going on with the military rule there. And what they did is the Myanmar government went from another part of the country and brought in the Muslim soldiers to kill them all, and they gunned them all down. And so the thing about that, and the reason I'm bringing that up is because they have to convince you that you have to obey them. They have to convince you that you have to obey their laws and have enough threat of force there, because they can't enforce the force on everybody. There's more of us than there are of them. That's the thing that they don't want. And so this is why people like myself are like, I'm dangerous to them, because I'm just a regular guy. I'm just saying, screw you. I'm not going to let you murder my people. And so I'm out here doing this. But you need to understand that this is why, like, a person like me is dangerous. Anybody can do what I'm doing. Anybody can figure it out, file a case. It's not as complicated as you think. You just learn the procedures a little bit, and you file a case. You come up, look, I'm arguing I didn't get the shot directly. I'm arguing my case based on shedding. Okay, so there's different ways you can argue a case, and don't let anybody tell you you can't file a case. Like, you find an angle and you file a case. You have to get creative. But the thing is if they have cases popping up all over the place, what are they going to do? They're going to try to get ahead of it. So what's going to happen is if there's enough, if we become like hornets swarming at them, if enough people start doing that, what's going to happen is they're going to want to get in front of it, take the shots off the market, try to have a controlled demolition of it so that they don't swing by the end of a rope. Because they don't want actual physical resolution. Because if this carries out enough and enough people wake up, pretty much every country in the world could get overthrown because all their people were poisoned.
Yes.
So they need to feel that threat. So then they'll get in front of it and try to take them off the market, and then maybe prosecute a few people here and there, to make it look good. But they want to keep you in a stupor. They want to keep you thinking that you have to obey. They want to keep you thinking that there's nothing you can do and nothing will happen. It's normal to have EKGs at high schools and stuff like that. None of this is normal. It's a threat to our human genome, what they've done. Our species might not exist, or we might be so weakened because of it that everybody will need pharmaceutical products just to live in the future. We don't know what they've done here. We know that lifespans are going down. We know that infant mortality is going up and birth rates are going down.
Yes.
That's what we know.
Oh, do we ever? I spoke to a midwife in New Zealand the other day, and it's horrendous what's happening in our hospitals. The numbers of stillbirths are through the roof, and the problems with pregnancy are, she said there are so many babies in the newborn sort of emergency department. It's called NICU here. But it's just full to overflowing with sick babies because they've been suffering the after effects. There was no research done on pregnancy, on jabbing pregnant mothers, and they're still meant to be pushing them here. No, I take your point. It is up to us. We cannot wait for any leader. If you look at Trump, though, he tried to do that psyop with the Epstein files. Remember that day when he said, "Are you still talking about Epstein? I thought that was done." And the world woke up and said, the world woke up and said, "Hey, wait a minute. You don't get to treat us like we're kindergarten children. We want to see those Epstein files." And they've had to capitulate. So it's the same.
Now, we don't know what's sitting there that they didn't release. There are probably another 3 million files they didn't release, but they did release a lot. And now we got patriots like Thomas Massey trying to get them to unredact the names of the co-conspirators. There's nobody's being prosecuted, but this is a similar thing. It's the same people. It's these same wealthy billionaire people that think they can just poison us and murder us, and they think it's okay.
Yes.
I challenge people.
And lie to us. Do you know that there's a huge gap in the Epstein papers, Joseph? That period around 9/11, at the beginning of
Oh, shocked. I'm shocked.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
There's
really
nothing.
shocked about that.
There's nothing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I mean, I remember when 9/11 happened. I remember the dancing Israelis there. And I do remember, I know that's been largely scrubbed from the internet, but if you go on Yandex, you can still find it if you search on there. And like, I think at that time, like the U.S. deported like 70 Israeli spies. So my view is that the Israeli Mossad and the CIA you're in on that. And it was an inside job.
For people who don't know about the dancing Israelis, can you remind them? Can you remind them?
Yeah, that was like basically this woman was watching them, and they had video of it too. And they were basically dancing while they were videoing the towers burn up and everything. And if I remember correctly, they turned out to be Mossad agents. They sent them back over there, but I think they went on Israeli TV and talked about it. But they were, they were videoing it, dancing and cheering while the building's like on fire and everything. So were they the demolition crew that set the bombs? I don't know.
But the point of the story is, the point of that story is you cannot trust your government. Stop trusting your government. Stop it if you are doing it.
Well, obviously the U.S. government was involved in it too. So I'm not just saying it was Israel, but it was a dual operation. But and of course, Epstein was most likely a Mossad and a CIA agent or asset of both of them. And so I think these are things that are waking people up a bit. And I know you had when you had Michael on and Sasha on, you had that video of the guy talking about all the people with dual citizenship, like Albert Bourla being one of them. So, I mean, that on itself, that you could have somebody who's a CEO of a company that's a pharmaceutical company that's a citizen of a foreign country, and they're like distributing it to whatever the foreign country is. Like that. I mean, to me, that's like a red flag. Yes. Look. The bottom line is that this is an international criminal conspiracy that involved elements of pretty much every government on the planet. Now, I'm not saying everybody involved in the governments were involved, but there clearly were elements of every government involved, because you can get, and just some of these things you just look at simply. Liz, if you got together with 10 or 12 of your friends at a dinner party, similar political, cultural backgrounds, you're going to start bickering over the nuances of everything. Like you'll have different views on stuff and you'll start, but how did they get the whole world to go and do the same stupid stuff, the same unscientific stuff, standing 6 feet apart, wearing the face diaper, the whole thing? Like, it's like, how did they get everybody into lockdowns? I mean, it's a prison term, and so this is something, whether it's the United States, China, Russia, Europe, Australia. Like, how did all these people go? So obviously there's elements in every government that's part of this international criminal class, these conspirators that are basically trying to depopulate our planet, pushing this transhumanist agenda. And I just encourage people, like, look, you've been violated. You've been violated. Your friends and family have been violated. If people are poisoning and killing your family members, if that's not enough to wake you up and enter the arena, what possibly can do it for you? I mean, at some point, you have to be a man and defend your family, or a woman and defend your family. At some point, you need to stand up. And so that's what disappoints me, is just the enormous cowardice that I see. I don't understand it. I have a real hard time grasping that. I mean, I'm a therapist. I still don't understand it, because, like, would you just stand there and watch that woman over there being raped, yet you'll let them poison your family members? What the hell is wrong with you?
And through the Epstein files, we've seen that there is, at the upper echelons, I never call them elites, they're the parasite class, but there's clearly a whole world of satanic influence, of pedophilia, and of sacrificing children. And you could say that somehow the PSYOP, the DARPA PSYOP, has had such an effect on some mothers that they've been willing to sacrifice their children. And that's an almost impossible thing for a mother to look back and go, what have I done? What has hurt my child? And I pushed them into this bioweapon shot, this poison shot.
Listen, Liz, I get the guilt. I get that, there's people that coerced other family members to get the shots. And I get the guilt. But you know what? Recognizing your mistake and trying to remedy the problem is the right thing to do. Pretending you didn't do it and covering up your guilt just makes you more guilty. Okay, because here's the bottom line. Everybody was lied to. Now, the question is, are you going to continue to go along with the lie and parrot the lie, or are you going to stand up for the truth and stand up for our species? Because this is a threat to our species. It's that simple. And I know people want to make this issue go away, but again, the biggest voting bloc in the world are people that have been poisoned by these injections, and nobody's representing them across our planet.
That is brilliantly put. Now, to finish, here's the question. I want you to blue sky it as if anything's possible. And I want you to imagine that you take this case all the way in the Netherlands. You're an expert witness with Sasha and Catherine Austin-Fitz. And there's an uncorruptible judge who sees the grave wrongdoing of Gates and Bourla. What would you like in that case, the outcome of that court case, to be for those criminals when they are deemed criminals? Let's visualize it right here.
Let's say now, if I'm a witness in that case, I don't know if I should say what I'd like to happen because I'm just going there to give facts. But I think how I could see it happening is that if there was a decision and a judgment rendered on behalf of the plaintiffs, especially if it's verifying like the violation of the bioweapons laws, the informed consent laws, and the genocide laws, and so on, I think you might start seeing some indictments coming up. Like, so, because if there's a civil court saying that, I think there'll be a lot of pressure on prosecutors to start prosecuting some of these people. That's how I see that playing out. You know, which is a little different in my case, because in my case, if it plays out and I win, the shots will come off the market because they're a weapon, and that's going to force prosecutors to take an action. But like here, you know, if the court is going to award like monetary damages because these people violated all these laws, these human rights laws, and just deployed a weapon against you, I see prosecutors almost being forced to follow through on that. In fact, as the case goes on, you know, there might be a point somewhere where prosecutors in Europe jump the gun if they see the cases getting traction.
Interesting. So we have a civil case that could force a criminal case, and that would be quite an outcome. So this is going to be a long process, Joseph, but please keep us informed about your trip on March the 9th, and we'll probably see.
Liz, we got to find a way to get you there with us too. You know, I'm going to have to talk you into that. I'm going to do some hypnosis. I'm going to do some hypnosis on you and see if I can get you to come. I bet you I get her to come. I'm just saying. I bet you I get her.
Will you be doing any live crosses? Will you be doing live crosses to tell people what's going on?
I'm going to bring my smartphone because, you know, I normally use the flip phone. I got the flip phone here, but then I do have a smartphone, but I could probably live stream stuff on right to my Substack, but I don't know if I'm in a courtroom. I probably can't do that because I think we're going to be connected to the thing so we can understand because it's in Dutch.
Yes. Yes.
And so, you know, afterward, when they're having the press conference, that's all going to be videoed. So, yes. I mean, I guess I could add my camera there to try to live stream it too. But I mean, that will end up, I don't know if it's live stream or if it's going to come right out after it's videoed. But I think that I can, if I don't do it, I'll hand you my camera and you can do it. But you can live stream right on your Substack if I can talk you into coming.
Oh, you could.
I'm gonna hypnotize. Watch it. I'm gonna hypnotize her when we're done. And I guarantee you, I get her to come. That's my bet.
Watch this space, and whatever happens, I will be interviewing you just after March the 9th to hear your account. Joseph, you're a delight to talk to. I know it's very late there, but thank you for giving me this update. And it's wonderful what you're doing. You should be, and you are for me, certainly an inspiration for everybody around the world, as you say, to take a case, pick up a pen, start learning how to do it, and just be audacious as Joseph. I think there might be a book in this, Joseph, where you could write about your experience taking your court case.
I actually finished my book. I just got to edit it and look it over, but it's called Psychopathic Authoritarianism, a Disease of the Soul. I just got to work on my ending a little bit. But that's the disease that's actually sweeping across planet Earth.
Say the title again,
Psychopathic Authoritarianism, and then the subtitle is A Disease of the Soul. And so that's the disease.
Authoritarianism, that's brilliant.
Yeah, because that's my thing. I'm a psychotherapist opposed to psychopathic authoritarianism.
Yeah.
So it's my little tag in all my articles. And so that is the actual real pandemic. That is the disease that's spreading across the planet.
That's brilliant. You're brilliant. Thank you, Joseph. We will keep in touch. Definitely. Work on that hypnotism. I'd appreciate it.
Oh yeah, we'll get her. Once we're done, I'll get her. You'll see her there. I guarantee it. I'll hypnotize her.
Thanks, Joseph. Lovely to talk to you.
Thank you.